conquerors, by those people who occupied Balochistan or who were in hostile relationship with the Baloch throughout history. They were written by the Persians, by the Arabs, by the British, and by the Pakistanis. So all these forces, they were one way or the other in a confrontational situation with the Baloch. So their history was a biased one, and they have written the history in their own perspective. What I did, I read all their accounts, available accounts in the British Library and the other libraries in the Britain. And I tried to find out the truth between the lines, because the history is supposed to be the tale or a story of the conquerors. So I tried to make a Baloch perspective through their writings.
There's a very important phenomena you have discussed, that the Balochs are the Balashkan or the Balashik. You have specifically mentioned about that. So we would like to know that what are the evidence you have considered to come up to that conclusion? Like,
yeah, there are some references of a region which was situated between the present-day Lake Van in Turkey and Caspian Sea in Iran. And these references were from the Greek sources and some of the Arab sources. And they have mentioned a particular region in the Achaemenid Empire, or the province of Achaemenid Empire. And it was just passingly referred by some of the authors that the Balochistan region is with the king, but the king is not sovereign. It is under the sovereignty of the Persian Empire of Arab. Then there was also a mention of some Christian preachers who went to Balochistan. And there is some mention, and one or two Arab chronicles, that when the Arabs, they occupied Iraq, present-day Iraq, they went to Balochistan, and they fought against the residents there. And they mentioned, the Greek sources mentioned, an ethnic group called Blaszczyk in Balochistan. So because it is not properly researched by previous authors, it is not clear whether this region, Balochistan, was named after this ethnic group Blaszczyk, or the Blaszczyk was named after this region. But after the Arab conquest of Iran, the whole mention of Balochistan could not be found in any written history book. So I thought that probably because a major portion of ethnic group Balochistan migrated or was forced to migrate from that region, and after some years, it lost its original nomenclature, and now it has so many different names. Now you can't find the name of Balochistan in either in Turkey or Iran and Azerbaijan, but the other regions are there. Lake Van is there. That was my, you can say, the finding between the lines, because it was written on the rocks, which was found from the Achaemenid emperor Darius, and Balochistan was there. But it is a province which God Ahura Mazda, uh, with the grace of God Ahura Mazda, I have conquered. Then there is another written text on a rock, which was modified by the head preacher or head priest of Darius or Kardar. Here again, the boundaries of the Balashkar was mentioned. So these are some few mentioning of the Balashkar. It needs further research. Some people who, with the knowledge of Turkish language or Persian language, may be able to find out more about it.
Okay, there is another important concept you have discussed in your book, that the Baloch, basically Balochs are the Aryans. So we would like to know that how come you have concluded that the Balochs are Aryan, and which like caste of the Aryans they belong to? Because there are so many Aryans.
Aryan phenomena is a huge phenomena, was a huge
Yeah.
phenomena in
Yes.
history. Also, and it is also a controversial terminology. Aryan means the people who speak the Aryan language.
Okay.
So Aryan language is a very broad family of languages. There are Indo-Iranic, Indo-European. So among these group of languages in the broader family of languages of Aryan people, Baloch is also included by the linguists. It's not my finding. It is already there. So I took this theory because I thought it is most probable or nearer to the logic. Because Arab Baluchi language is not similar to Semitic languages like Hebrew and Arabic. Baluchi language is not similar to the Mongoloid languages or Turkish languages. So the only near relative of Baluchi language are Aryan languages like Persian, Kurdish, and Sanskrit. So that is why the linguists, the majority of the linguists or the center elements of the linguists, they included Baloch among the Aryan people because they spoke Aryan language.
So we can say that we are second cousin of Persian and the Turkish.
Now we are first, not Turkish, we are first cousin of Kurdish and Persian, not Turkish.
Okay. Okay, there is another like important concept which few scholars they talk about, that the basically Balochs are living here since like ages, and they give the argument about the Mehergarh civilization, and they said that the Baloch has never migrated from other part of the world. So what is your take on that?
No, this is just a childish assumption. Mehergarh civilization is a Sindhi civilization. It's part of the Mohenjo-daro civilization.
Okay.
And it is connected to the Sumerian civilization. It is of the same period when Sumerian civilization was there. It is estimated that the Mohenjo-daro civilization or Mehergarh civilization or Nal civilization or Kulwa civilization or Satkagendur or Satkagen Shahar in Sistan, they are of the same age, and they are between 5,000 to 7,000 years old. Some of these archaeological findings are before the Iron Age. So there is no evidence, academic evidence, or logical thinking that Mehergarh Arnal, or Sutkagandos, or Mohenjo-daro civilization, or Baluchi civilization. This is just the talk for the sake of talking.
Okay, there is another school of thought. They argue about that the Balochs are the descendants of the Hazrat Amir Hamza. So, what is your take on that? Because they argue that they,
There are two Amir Hamza in the Arabic history.
okay,
One Amir Hamza was the uncle of Muhammad Mustafa.
okay,
The other was Amir Hamza was a ruler for 20, 30 years, and what is present day Balochistan or Eastern Persia. So which Amir Hamza are we
uh, we are referring to the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad.
The uncle of Prophet Muhammad never married. In Arabic history or Islamic history, there is no wife of Amir Hamza. So I don't know whether he begetted son from his own body or from somewhere else. I can't say anything.
Okay, there is a very important concept which Lala Turam argues about the Baloch and Brahui people. And
Yes.
he said the Baloch people are the different, and the Brahvis are those who or basically lives in the Balochistan since ages. So he uses the word of the Dravidian and the language of the Darbar. So what is your take? What is your take on that? Like why he come up with such argument, and what makes him, since he was working for the British Empire, so what makes him to try to create such kind of things within one?
He was asked to create such thing. He was an employee of East India Company. When East India Company occupied Punjab, he came into conflict with Balochistan. The boundaries of Punjab was the boundaries of Balochistan. So when the Great Game began in Central Asia, the British East India Company changed the policy. Before that, the policy of East India Company was that they will not go beyond Sindhu River. But when the Russians, they marched towards Afghanistan, occupying many khanates in Central Asia. So the British, they worried that they might enter Afghanistan or Iran, and then they might occupy India. India was the sole source of income for England at that time because America was not there. America has been liberated by the people. So they planned strategies how to counter the Russians. So they abandoned their previous policy of maintaining the Indian borders at the Sindhu River. And they made another policy that was termed that forward policy. It was called forward policy in their books and literature. Forward policy was that the British forces will go beyond Sindhu River to counter the Russian influence. So Turam and so many other people, they were deputed to investigate or to explore the regions and the people and the languages. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay, but is there any voice problem?
No.
Yeah, it's okay.
So many people, intelligence people, army officials, Puttinger, like so many others, they were deputed to investigate, to tour Balochistan in Afghanistan and Iran, and to find out what we can do to counter the Russian menace. So when they came to Balochistan, they found out that the majority of the people who are being ruled in Balochistan, they are from the Baloch ethnicity, and but to their surprise, they found out that the central region of Balochistan, where the Kalat was situated, and Kalat was the capital of Balochistan, and Balochistan was named also by the. They were tasked to find out what are the weak points of Afghanistan, Balochistan, and Iran. So one of the weakest point, they found out that the central region of Balochistan, where the Kalat city is located and where the Khan of the Baloch is residing or ruling, some of the people and even the ruling family, Ahmadzai clan, they speak a dialect of Balochi, which is somewhat different from the Orthodox Balochi and Balochi dialect. So they took this point, they exploited this point, and in their writings, they created a wedge between these people, and they tried to create a confusion that Brahmis are a different nation and the Baloch are a different nation. So that was logical, that was planned. And later on, that was also taken by Pakistani writers and government officials. So that is the long-drawn strategy of the people who wanted to create differences among the people they wanted to rule. That was the divide and one of the strategies of divide and rule policy.
Okay, there is a one important thing which we want to know, that in overall country we have observed that the people like Baloch people, they are living in Sindh, they are living in northern part of southern part of Punjab. So so when they migrated there, they adopted their language. So what is the reason, like what is the anthropological perspective of that, that when Baloch is migrated to Sindh, they have started speaking Sindhi. When they migrated to the Punjab, they have adopted the Saraiki language. So what is the anthropological perspective, or what is the your like take on that? Like what is your submission on that?
I think this is something genetic. It is in the Baloch genes that whenever they settled in an area, they thought that area is their land. And to be loyal to their land is one of the genetic characteristics of the Baloch. The Baloch said that when you drink one glass of water from someone, be loyal to him for at least 100 years. So that makes a basic genetic behavioral ingredient of the Baloch. Very few people or nation in this world, they have the same thing. Baloch, fortunately or unfortunately, they have this genetic character. So the Baloch and Sindhi, they are loyal to Sindh, and they should be, because the Sindh has become their motherland. So that is why I think the Baloch who migrated to Punjab, they speak Saraiki. The Baloch, they are in Sindh, they speak Sindhi. I don't think there is anything wrong in this.
No, since like it's a very common question. Majority of the students, they are always ask that why they cannot speak the Balochi language and why they forgot that language. That's why we asked that question. There is another important question. Like we want to know that. Please tell us about the history of current Balochistan, like the who ruled Balochistan, and were the rulers of the Balochistan. So we want to know about that.
At what period?
Like before partition, the since the fall of the Kalat state, like is there
Since the
anyone before Ahmad Zais? Is there any other rulers who ruled to
yes,
Balochistan? So we want to know
before
about that.
before Ahmad Zai, this state of Kalat, which was founded in 1666. Before that, Balochistan was ruled by many people and nations and powers. Even from the beginning of the state of Darius and Cyrus, or Achaemenid Empire, who ruled all those areas up to Indus River. So then the Greek came with the advent of Alexander the Great. This whole region was occupied by the Greek for 150 years. After the Greek, then for 500 years, there was an empire which is called in historical accounts as the Parthian Empire, the empire of the Parthis. Then came the Sassanid, who also ruled this whole area. And at the end of the Sassanid era, before the Arab conquest of Iran, this area of Balochistan was ruled by Sindh.
You are specifically talking about the Talpur family. They ruled over Balochistan.
No.
Or
Talpur is a later phenomena. I'm talking about the ancient ages. So after the collapse of Sassanid Empire and the occupation of Iran by the Arabs, then Arab ruled this part of the world where Balochistan is situated for 150 years. After the collapse of the Arab power, then there were so many regional powers like Boyars, like Ghaznavis, like Samanis. Then there were Mongols. Genghis Khan's family ruled for 150 years. Then there were the family of Timur Lang, who ruled this area for many years. So then there was this area was ruled by Safavid in the west, and in the east it was ruled by the Mughals. So after the collapse of Mughal power, or the weakening of the Mughal power in 17th century, and also the weakening of the Safavid power in Iran in 17th century, Balochistan was ruled. This present state of Balochistan was created by the Ahmad Zai clan, and that state was founded. So that was a brief. The Talpur era also, it is a 17th, 18th century phenomena. And Talpur were hired by Kalhodas as their forces in Sindh. So after some time, when Talpur gained sufficient power and influence, they overthrew Kalhodas and they became ruler of the Sindh for 80 years. When the British occupied Sindh, and Talpur's rule was ended, and Talpur was killed and imprisoned.
okay, when did this Balochistan word came to like used in the documentary of the history, and when did they start using this Balochistan word?
I have not seen any written document written before 12th century mentioning the term of Balochistan. You can find Balochistan in written text after 12th century. During 12th century, this area was dominated by the migrating Baloch tribes. And when the Seljuk Empire, it was part of the Seljuk Empire, when the Prime Minister of Seljuk Empire, I think it was Nizamuddin, yes, Nazimuddin or Nizamuddin, he divided the empire into many provinces. So he named one of the provinces as Balochistan. And from that period onward, we can find the word Balochistan for this. Before that, it was either written as Sistan, Makran, Kirman, Rakshan, or Kalat, or Kachh Gandawat. The name Balochistan for this region in written history can only be found after 12th century.
Okay, we still have got few questions, but what we want to do that we want to ask audience if they have any query or if they have any questions, they can ask so that we can have the participation from the audience as well. So there's another important thing which is going on these days. There is a very famous drama which is liked by like so many people in our country. They linked Ortugal with the Baloch people. So what is your stance on that?
Who is Ortugal?
I don't know. It's Ortugal Ghazi is someone from the Turkey. They have they created drama on that, and then
I can't remember reading a name on this. I don't know about this person. Is he an academician or what kind of person he is?
He's a kind of a tribal leader. So that's what we know about him.
I'm totally blank about this. Sorry.
Sir, you mentioned that the difference between Balochi and Brahui was created by the British Empire. Now, what about the language or the difference between Balochi and Brahui language? There is
the difference between Balochian, Baluchi and Brahui dialect is 5% of the Brahui language or dialect, whatever you want to say, is from the words taken from Turkish language. And maybe 5 to 10% of the words, less than 5% of the words taken from an ancient language, ancient Sindhi language, or you can call it a Dravidian language. 90% of the Brahui words, nouns, verbs are the Baluchi, pure Baluchi. So the Brahui is 90% Baluchi, 5% Turkish, 5% Hindi or Dravidian.
All right, sir, I have another question. That what sort of faith or religions existed in Balochistan before Islam? Thank you, sir.
And not only Balochistan and whole of the region in Middle East, there were 3-4 major religions at that time before the advent of Islam. There was Judaism, there was Zarathushtri religion, whose god was Ahura Mazda, and the prophet was Zarathusht. Then on the east, there was the Hindu religion and the Buddhist doctrine. And there were Mongol religious or Turco-Mongolish religious beliefs. So because Balochistan was situated in the Iranian plateau or under the Iranian empire. So it is most probable that the Baloch were the follower of the Zarathushtri religion or a renegade sect of the Zarathushtri religion, because in that whole area from Jahlawan to Kerman, where the Baloch people were living, or either in Balochistan, there was no other religion except the Zarathushtri religion. So it is most probable that Baloch were also, if they were not atheist or irreligious, then they were the followers of the Zarathushtri religion. The Baloch were not followers of any other god. They were not Jews. They were not followers of the Turco-Mongol religious beliefs, and they were not followers of either the Hindu religion or the Buddhist religion. There is no connection. But there are so many connections of the Baloch, present Baloch mindset or present Baloch religious behavior with the Zarathushtri religion.
Okay, one of the participant, she's asking that I have heard that the Brahui language is also an extent of the Balochi language, and even it was never named as a separate language before 70s. Is this kind of thing exist?
Brahui language was there, but was not considered as a separate language other than Baluchi. Before 70, even in Saravan and Jalawan, the marriage song with Brahui speaking tribes were in Baluchi. So the other rites, other things, they were all in Baluchi poetry, and there was not much poetic contribution of Brahui since before 1970. So this Brahui Baluchi thing is something artificial.
Okay, there is another question from the participant. They're asking that can we link Mehergarh civilization with our civilization, or because there is very specific work which has been carried out on the Mehergarh civilization. So is it that language which can be linked with the Balochi language or the Baloch culture?
No, Balochi language and language of the Mehergarh people not same. Mehergarh people were part of Indus civilization. It was part of the Mohenjo-daro civilization. At the time of Mehergarh and Mohenjo-daro, Baloch were not in this part of the world. Baloch were living either in Balochistan or somewhere in the Iranian plateau. They came late. When the Baloch came here, Mehergarh was not there. And same thing was with the Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro was a pure ancient Sindhi civilization. We can't link Baluchi civilization with Sindhi civilization of that time. This is not only Mehergarh. There is Nal in Balochistan, Jahlawan. There are the same things you can find from Nal with that of Mehergarh. Also in Kulwa, also in Dasht, in Sutkagendur, in Sistan, Shahar Sokhta. They are the same thing. They are the people of the same era. They use same things. They use same utensils. Probably they spoke the same language. They can't be related to the Baloch. They are very ancient civilization. You can link them with ancient Mohenjo-daro civilization or Sumerian civilization, but not the Baloch civilization. There is no logic.
Okay, one of the participants, they are asking that how British sources are credible. Like, can we trust on that regarding the Baloch history?
We can't trust British sources, Arabic sources, Russian sources, Pakistani sources regarding the Baloch history. We have to read between the lines, because if the British say Sardar Jumma Khan or Sardar Jiyant Khan, they were very, very mean person. You must know they were good person. So if the Persians said the Baloch were robbers, they were plunderers. So you must know that the Baloch were not plunderers. The same thing which the Arabs said that Baloch were irreligious, they don't know what about God and everything, and they were brutal and they were so and so. So we should take these things as opposite of these, because they don't show the bright side of youth. Because they were the conquerors. Baloch are the only few among the very few nations in this area who resisted the British ferociously. So they still don't trust Baloch because for 100 years the Baloch fought against the British. So their historians never praised Baloch people.
Okay, there is another question from the participant. They're asking that why the name of the Gidroshia was famous.
Gidroshia was famous because it was written by the Greek historians, and the Greek historians were the only people for 2,000 years that people read their books and they consulted their historical accounts. So they named this area as Gidroshia. I don't know why. So from the Greek accounts, it became known as Gidroshia. There is no other mentioning of Gidroshia in other sources except the Greek.
One of our lecturer is working with us at Las Vegas University. Is asking that is that true that there is a Ni alphabet comes at the end of Balochi speaking Baloch and other as Bravi?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Ni alphabet.
Ni.
Yeah. He is asking specifically about the Ni alphabet.
Ni. No, I'm not a linguist. I don't know about such things.
Okay, one of the participants, he asked a very brief question. He said, "I wish to know that how to reconstruct the Baloch history on the modest approach to remove the certain stereotype projections like Baloch are the warriors, which doesn't fit in the modernized world of today, and nomad, which often separates uh, education. What course or point of entry a historiographer can take?"
No, Baloch were not nomadic. Baloch were agro-pastoralists. And it was not only the Baloch who were agro-pastoralists at that time. The whole region was populated by the people who can be termed easily as agro-pastoralists. So Baloch were one of among those people. Nomad is something different. A warrior is something different.
Excuse me, sir. Can I have raised this question. Can I ask you some question?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes.
Sir, that was my question actually. I was going through your book, and these are some stereotypical projections. I often believe that people connect us with warriors, with nomads, and in today's world we do not fit. I face these problems in my university as well. So we are just in these projections. And there is another question. I was reading your book. You make the identity, Baloch identity, quite exclusive somewhere. Should I read that some lines for you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, a Baloch is one who calls himself Baloch, and no one who is not a Baloch will so call himself. It is not the origin of an individual, but the adaptation of certain code of conducts that makes the person a Baloch in traditional Baloch perspective. Adherence to the fundamentals of the Baloch society makes a person an honorable Baloch, while negation of any of these can proclaim the person a Baloch of lower status. Which
Yes.
I think that aren't we going rational, subcategories creating in Baloch as well? The cultural harmony, I think you are hitting it somehow.
No, I'm not hitting it. I'm indicating this cultural uh, harmony or cultural adaptation of the Baloch, because Baloch is present day Baloch are not a racial entity. They are a mixture of different people, different groups, different uh, racial groups into one entity, which became by the passing of and developed the Baloch nation. So there are so many tribes among the Baloch who were not originally the Baloch. There are so many people who adopted their ethnicity as the Baloch in a later stage. So this is also a unique phenomenon among the Baloch, that they adopt other people as Baloch, provided they follow their peculiar code of conduct. So it is not inclusive. Baloch are not inclusive. Baloch are inclusive, not exclusive. You can find so many Sindhi tribes now there. They are Baloch, and nobody can say that they were Sindhi. There are so many Persian tribes which are now Baloch. There are so many Turkish tribes. They are now Baloch. There are Kurdish tribes. They are now Baloch. There are some Mongol tribes also who are now Baloch. So this is quite a unique phenomenon in this part of the world. We can't find such things in other nation's history or culture.
Okay, there is a question from the participants. He said that the why historians mostly focused on the Baloch race instead of the people of Balochistan who are different ethnic backgrounds, or the different races who are not originally Baloch.
This racial terminology is no more viable, but because it was the Baloch history was written as a racial history by the British spies and British East India Company people. So at that time in literature, it was the time of classifying people or nation into races. So that was the rhetoric of that time. After now in 20th century literature or history books, you can find other terminologies. You rarely find any racial terminology because it is not in fashion nowadays.
Okay, there's another question. They said there prevails a controversy with the meaning of the Baloch. So what does actually Baloch means?
It is still controversial. So many people, they define Baloch differently. Some say it is because they were wearing a cock's comb in the army of Cyrus or Darius, and they were named as the Baloch. Some say because they are tall and magnificent, because or they are Baal and old. So these are just assumptions. And I myself think that it is still to be investigated, researched, the real meaning, why they were called Baloch. So I think some people, some young people, or someone after our generation, after death, they might be able to go to those areas where the Baloch were originally there. a person with Turkish language knowledge, Armenian language knowledge, or Persian language knowledge may be able to find out the real original meaning of the Baloch.
Okay, there is a another question from one of our senior colleague working with us at Las Vegas University. He says that there are three theories regarding Baloch. One is Arab, they are basically from Syria, Halab. Second is Aryan, Caspian Sea. Third is the Aboriginal people of the Balochistan. Just we discussed about the Bear. So can't we say that the Baloch are a mixture of the various social groups?
Yeah, we talked about this mixture.
Yeah, we
But Baloch are not Arabs.
okay. So
We can find so many Arab people among the Baloch, but they are not Arabs. Sort of like us, we are in Britain, we are British, but we are not English.
Okay, there is another question. Someone is asking that how you see the future of Baloch nation, and especially particularly when we talk about the Balochi language. So how do you see that?
The Baloch are among the few of the nations who resisted their death throughout history. They resisted very well. When we see the ancient history written by the Greeks and Romans, they mentioned 7 nations in the region which we consider that Baloch were living at that time, or the region of Balochistan, and they mentioned 7 nations. Among those 7 nations, only 2 survived. One are the Kurds and the other are the Baloch. Others were only mentioned in ancient history, and nowadays you can't find any mention. You don't know who they are nowadays. So Baloch survived the Sassanid invasion. Baloch survived the Arab invasion. So Baloch survived the Mongols. Baloch survived the British. I think Baloch will also survive the contemporary hostile nations. But survival of a nation or a language depends on so many internal and external factors. If the Baloch are able to make Balochi the language of their schools and colleges in near future, Balochi language will survive. Otherwise, it is hard for the languages to survive in this fast moving world. And the survival of a nation is dependent on the survival of the language. If we lose our language, we lose our identity and we lose our national existence. So it depends what the situation develops in the near future.
Okay, there is another question. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it rightly or wrong. Where will you position the Koi Alborz in the origin of Baloch? I don't know. I never heard about it.
Koi Alborz is a mountain range in the south of Caspian Sea. It is not the origin of the Baloch people, but the Baloch were supposed to be living in Alborz area at the time of Arab invasion. Before that, according to my research, Baloch were living in the Balochistan region.
Okay, there is another question, Dr. Saab. Someone is asking that, can you answer me please that how was Brahui language begun?
I'm not a linguist, but Darwin language is the Balochi language. With the development of Balochi language, uh, Balochi and Brahui language, to me, are not two separate things. They are the same thing, with a little difference.
Sir, may I please ask a question here?
Yep.
Sir, there is another hypothesis about Balochi and Brahui language that the Baloch tribe migrated towards the mountains, like we can call it a Burj Kuya.
Yeah, this is the hypothesis that the dialect which we see in present day Jalawan and Sarawan and some areas of Jalawan and Sarawan is actually the dialect who the originally the Baloch tribes who were living in the mountain range of Alborz, they were speaking that kind of language. And it was also mentioned in some Arabic chronicles that the people, they called them the Baluchi, they were living in the mountain and in the desert area of Kirman. Time when the Arab came in contact with them, and they said that they were speaking, they were the same people speaking two different dialects. So, and there is another hypothesis, which is that the present Brahui dialect is the dialect of the people who were living in Bashkar area of southern, present day southern Iranian Balochistan. So the Bashkardi dialect is vanished from Bashkar. Only some old people, they can speak it. The new generation, they speak the dialect of Makroni dialect nowadays. But I heard that some old people, they still speak Bashkardi dialect. And Bashkardi and Brahui dialect are very much similar.
So I'm sorry for the question. I am not well aware about the subject. But one of my question is regarding the method that you have used, because as you said that you have to, once you are looking into the Baloch history, you need to read in between the lines. So how much is your research method is, do you ever thought about like going for the storytelling methods, or maybe while looking into the literature which explain the history of that time, or the poetry maybe, because for instance many areas I have experience of Gilgit-Baltistan. So when I visited many of their rural household, even everybody was very much fond of telling the historical things. So there was a too much culture of storytelling, and everybody was talking about their forefathers. So what do you think that how much we can extract about the history by storytelling methods? So this is my one question. And my second question is that you talked about that it's because of the identity and which we can get from the language on the survival of the Baloch nation. But if, because you are a historian, so my question is that how do you see the future of Baloch nation when in considering the complex politics and the power imbalance and the resource-rich land, but again within the crisis of identity. So if we look into the path dependence of the historical events, the rise and fall of the Baloch nation, so how do you see the future of the Baloch nation in this perspective?
First of all, the first part of your question was about the storytelling and history accounts, historical accounts. When I began writing, researching, reading for my book, there were lots of historical accounts of that region. And I have to read about the history of Persia, about the history of Arabs, about the history of Central Asian people, about the history of Sindh, about the history of India, and the British advent in India, and the history of Persian Gulf. And that was my source of my book on Balochi. The story of old people on the far side stories, they are not authentic historical account because they are very much biased, and they are not one third person, fourth person. They are coming from maybe 4 or 5 generations. So they have been so altered, so mutilated. You can't find the equal truth among those stories. That also comes very much true about the Baloch classical poetry, which we can't base our history on those poems sung by minstrels and lullies and others. The other thing about the future of the Baloch as a nation or a national entity, it depends upon the internal dynamics of Persian and Pakistani state and his their western pet. Pakistan is being propped up or maintained by America and British. Once they said, okay, enough is enough. We are done with Pakistan. Pakistan will be no more there, and Baloch will survive. Same will apply with Persian. Persian state is also being supported by Europe and indirectly by Britain and America. So it depends on the policy of the gods of present day worlds, America, Britain, Europe. So, and it also depends upon the will of the Baloch people to survive. They survived 2,000 years of subjugation, and I think they will survive for some more decades or centuries.
Okay, Dr. There is a question from one of the participants. He's asking that uh, that what was the mistake of the Baloch history or historians who put this in mind of the many people that the Baloch writers don't say that the Brahui people are not Baloch. Many people raising question on especially Gishkori's book on hitting by them, kindly clear it. I think we already discussed that, particularly the case of Lala Thuram, where you have mentioned that he was the servant of British government. So that's why that was intentionally or the purposely thing which he mentioned in his book. It was kind of divide and rule policy which continues, I think, till together. So we will skip that questions. And there is another question that what is the significance of the Makran and the Toran province of the Sasanian Empire in the Baloch history?
And, so this whole area up to Indus River, or present Jalawan and Sarawan or Turan, they were the part of the Sassanid Empire. But in the last decades of the Sassanid era, before the Arab conquest of Iran, this Jalawan and Sarawan region up to Quetta and Kandahar, they seceded from the Sassanid Empire, or they were occupied by the Sindhi Empire or Sindhi Kingdom of that time. Same happened to Makran. Makran became the part of kingdom. And the borders of the Sindh at that time were near Kirman in the west. So, but when the Arab conquered Iran, and they conquered Makran, and they conquered Jalawan, they invaded Jalawan and Sarawan. So they found out that there are, at that time, although it was part of Sindhi kingdom, but the ruling clans or ruling tribes were a Turkish tribe they were called the Haftalite Turks. So the Arabs, in Arabic language of that time, Turkish region were called Turan, and the Persian regions were called Iran. So they named in their chronicles Jahlawan and Sarawan is Turan, the land of the Turks, because so many rulers, local rulers, were Turkish from Turkish tribes. And Turkish tribes, Haftalite Turkish tribes were living in these areas from Karachi up to Kandahar for nearly 150 years. So that's why there are so many Turkish words in Brahui dialect of Baluchi. And the Baluch came in Sarawan, Jalawan. So many people were from Turkish ethnic groups. So that is why Jalawan and Sarawan are called Turan, and the other regions are named Makran and Lakshan and Gandhara.
Okay, Dr. There is a question, like I'll mix two questions together. I'll ask it that two participants, they're asking about the cultural day, and that these days we are seeing this phenomena like every year the people they come up with the pug and those things. He said they're asking like what is the cultural background of this? Is it just to protect your tradition, language, or culture, or just to showcase it? Because we are in a kind of situation where we have the fear that we may lose our cultural aspects.
Yeah, I think it's a part of preserving one's identity, but it's not enough. Preserving the language, preserving the moral code, preserving the principles, they are important also. It's part of the game. I'm not familiar. I don't know actually what is culture day or something like that, because I'm here for the last 12 years, and when I was there was no cultural days. I don't know what is the actual phenomena, but everything which highlights your identity as a people is good enough. If it is so, I don't know.
Okay, one of the participants, he want to ask that it's his personal observation that with discussion on the persecution on the Baloch by other major ethnic group relatable with the migratory life of the Israelis as they were deported their land to and wandered around the thousands of years until settled their homeland. Is that general phenomena or is it particularly linked with?
Israelis are chosen people. They are very hard people. We can't match Israelis. Although we have been persecuted for the last 2,000-3,000 years, but the Israelis, I think, if you are not biased, if you think neutrally, they are extraordinary people. I don't know, it is because of their God or because of their genetic character, but they survived so many extraordinary events with other people. They could not survive. They vanished. The Israelis, they survived. I don't know because if it is their genetic makeup or because their God is so powerful, it remains to be seen.
There is another question. I think someone is asking that is Karachi was the part of Balochistan?
No, Karachi was never part of Balochistan, but during the reign of Mir Naseer Khan, when he was the Khan of Klad, he was in friendly terms with Kalhoda rulers of Sindh. So Kalhodas were in hostile relationship with Punjab, with Ranjit Singh and other powers. So, and Kalhodas were also, there was a civil war between various clans of the Kalhoda for power. So, so Nasir Khan gave some forces once or twice in support of Kalhodas, and the Kalhodas in return they offered the revenue of Karachi port to the Khan of Cloth, and it remained. The revenue was taken by the Khan of Cloth for 10, 15, or maybe 20 years. And after the collapse of Kalhoda power in Sindh, when Talpur gained power, they retook the revenue income of the Karachi. So it was a short period when the revenue of Karachi was taken by Khan of Cloth. Karachi was never part of the Baloch.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your wonderful this session. I want to ask one thing that there are so many histories related with Baloch. So, in this era, what will you suggest us that those are the relevant books and sources we should read the history of Baloch? What will you suggest us?
I think you should read whatever you think is logical. There are so many illogical historical accounts written also by the Baloch. Forget about the other people. So if you read the history of Persia, history of Persian Gulf, history of Central Asia, history of Sindh, I think you will be able to select a book on the history of the Baloch. Otherwise, you will be very confused because so many elements, so many powers, so many forces are engaged in mutilation of the Baloch history, one way or the other. Some are relating it to Arabs, some are relating it to Mergad, some are relating it to whatever, God knows where. So all these are concerted efforts by those people who want to confuse the Baloch younger generation about their history. So we are not, Baloch were not among the rulers of this world. Baloch were not nomads. We are just a group of people, a nation who resisted the subjugation maneuvers of other people throughout history. That is Baloch. And we survived because we have a definite code of conduct among themselves. So that is the major source of our survival. So I don't think that when you are reading history of the surrounding region, you will be confused about the history of the Baloch. You will be very much clear which book is worthy of reading and which hypothesis is logical or not.
So, one of the participants is asking that how do you see the Gul Khan Nasir's narrative of the Balochistan history?
I think it is more logical than so many other narratives. It is one of the best narratives. It's more logical than so many other people's irresponsible writing.
Okay, there is another question. Someone is asking that the history of Oman and Gwadar, because we know that just few years back it was handed over to the Pakistan. So, what is the history of Oman and Gwadar?
After the collapse of Portuguese power in Persian Gulf in 1650, this present-day ruling family of Muscat, which is called the Busaidi family, power. And with the support of the British, they are still in the government for the last 300 years. But in 18th century, one of the family member of the ruling clan of the Busaidi family or Busaidi ruler, they fought among each other. Then one of the brothers, he came to Balochistan and sought asylum with Khan Naseer Khan. The Khan gave him asylum and he remained in Kalat. But during winter, he said that temperature of Kalat is unbearable to me and you should send me to another place where it is more according to the temperature or climate of Muscat. So Khan Naseer Khan sent him to Gwadar. And at that time, Gwadar was not a big town. It was a small fishing village. But there were some revenues because there were some merchants and there were some traders getting there. And so the Khan gave revenue of Gwadar to that asylum seeker. So after some time, after some year, this person, he managed to settle his dispute with his brother. He went back to Muscat. He returned Gwadar. So after Naseer Khan, the state of Kalat was deteriorating and it was not so powerful. The Sardars were fighting against Khan, Khan was fighting against Sardars, Sardars were fighting among themselves. And Gwadar was neglected. One of the Khan, he gave his sister, daughter, I don't know, it is written in my book, I remember now, to matrimonial relationship with the Jam of Las Vegas and gave Gwadar as the chadar of his daughter or sister. So when his daughter went to Las Vegas and asked his husband that Gwadar is my shah, so I want my shah back. And Jam of Las Vegas sent some people to Gwadar and he took over Gwadar fort or Gwadar village. But the Muscat state was powerful enough and they came back with a mighty force. They took over Gwadar. They went to Sonmiani. They burned Sonmiani in revenge. And the Jam of Las Vegas never sent people to Gwadar again. Then another, I think it was Khudadad Khan, he asked the governor of Makpuran, Sardar Fakir Muhammad Hira Khan, to take Gwadar back. He tried, but because the forces of Muscat, they were also the Baloch people, and the Khanate forces were the Baloch. So they refused, and the mission was abandoned. After that, but Kalat state was captured by Britain, occupied by Britain. So the matter of Gwadar was settled until 1958 when Britain forced Sultan of Oman to give Gwadar to Pakistan.
Okay, we'll take final question from the participants and then we'll finish our session. So please, if someone want to ask,
may I please ask the question?
Yes.
Babar, you have asked. You have already asked 3 questions. I think.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, no problem.
You can ask, but we'll request another participant as well.
Okay.
They can also ask. Please go ahead.
Sir, my question is regarding the contemporary mindset of Baloch. Why are we so sensitive regarding our culture? When we see, as compared to other ethnic groups in Pakistan, we are too sensitive. Can we consider ourselves more connected to our roots as compared to other ethnic groups after colonial era?
Oh, well, because we are struggling for our survival, physical, cultural, national survival. So when you are under brutal suppression, your instinct, the body instinct, they send alarm bells that there is some emergency. So in emergency, you are very sensitive to each and everything. A little sound, you will jump. So this is basic human instinct. When you are in emergency, where you are facing a danger, when you are facing annihilation, these things happen. So the other nations in Pakistan, they are more in a comfortable position than Baloch. Punjabis are the ruling nation. Sindhis, they have preserved their language. They are teaching their language in schools. Pathan, they have their own country in Afghanistan, and they are much better than Baloch. So Baloch are the weakest link. This is this sensitivity is best human instinct among the Baloch.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes.
Sir, man, just to sir, mani just saying ke tai soke Baloch culture, Baloch origin ke Balochistan ya Balachkanda relate kane. ये origin तो का सही मतलब किताबें वाना का ज़्यादातर हमारा sound evidence ज़्यादा रहती. Sound evidence के अलावा अच्छी evidence के तो हमारा कुछ भी कने.
या के ईरान मौसम शर्बी भी तो मतलब तेहरान पढ़ने दफ्तर में पट्टी ये आस्ते sources वो हमेशा चलो गेस्टर मन नदी स्पंदे अब कोशिश को भले यक्की वाइशिंग के मना अरबी नदाना अरब जानते मर्दमी भी प्रत्येक अरबानी शुरू है 19th 8th और 9th century है अच्छी के किताबा फर्स्ट हैंड हन कदरोग और देगे हिसाब किताब कम में रंदे पता हिसाब किताब है ना भले निदाने के वास्ते अरबी ज़बान लुटी मार अरबी नदाना और नाम फारसी जाना मनी कमजोरी हमेशा बल्कि देवा उम्मीद करें कि वरना ये टर्किश अरबिक लैंग्वेज वाला दबियां तो आर्मीनियाई ज़बाना गोड़ा मर्दवारा बल्कि बेशतर मवाद रसत कम बलाशगाने बारहा या इलाके बारहा
और सर मनी देखिए क्वेश्चन है कि सर जामत सावे भी बलोच कल्चरल हेरिटेज तो काम बेचारे और तई किताबें तो काम बेचारे बलोच के सोशल लाइफ पे हम छाकरे वर्द के हम सोशल लाइफ भी था बलोच या हम सारी के हम प्रीमेटिव दौरा को जामत साहब भी आइए रिलेट का बड़ा सर इसे बाबत तो ठीक कुछ या प्रीमेटिव कम्युनिज्म या बलोच हायरार्की के हम सिस्टम भी था सरदार है और आम बलोच है या आटे बच्चों भी था फुल इक्वालिटी भी था या अंशों के सरदार है और आम मर्द में रिलेशन मच्छियों वदास्ते हमें वर्ड भी था
सरदारी और ट्राइबलिज्म इंसान सोशल इर्तिका एक स्टेज है भले चुना ये का बलूच ना दुरुस्त ट्राइबल सोसाइटी इक्वलिटी में स्टाब्लिश है और सरदारे को आम बलूच हैसियत अकीबता के सरदार सेलेक्टेड या इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव होता ट्राइब इंटरेस्टानी सर्व करेंगे आया अब देखे एडवांटेज ना बुता आया वती सरदारी चलाने के वास्ता मखलूक का आया मदद करता जमीन ट्राइब बुता सरदार ना बुता सरदार आ रहा या टोकरी दिया दे जमीन दिया बुता क्या ये नानो नस्काया को मेहमान नानी हो ये सब तावे खर्च भी की सरदार कौन आम बलूच कौन सरदार नंगो आम बलूच नंग दुष्यक बुता ये सिस्टम के अन्नु मागे दिखा ये अंग्रेज़ां जो था हालात गिरगारन संडेमन साहिबा ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर बुता संडेमना ये के सरदारी के अस्ते पेट मोर्ता चौक सरदार बुता सरदारन सरदार सरदार सिपाही सिपाही दारा इतना गुजर जाता पेशा ये चीज नाबूद तंगा पेट मोर्ता चौक सरदार नाबूदा फिर जो सरदार के मोर्ता कबीले लायक से मर्दम सरदार था वो सरदाराना जमीन नाबूदा ज्यादा ही क्योंकि इतने मर्द सर ट्राइबल फर्टियर हम जमीन था हम सरदार था ये सिस्टम पता इंग्लिश में सोसाइटी अपसाइड डाउन को तो ये चप्पू भले बलूचन चाहे दिखम ट्राइबल सोसाइटी दिखम मंगोल सोसाइटी दिखम ट्राइबल कहानी हम ये सब किताब
Okay, Dr. Sab, thank you very much. I think we should end our session here because we have already taken your lot of time. So we really appreciate okay, you have considered our request and you have given us a very valuable feedback regarding the history of the Balochistan. So if someone has the question, they can post in the WhatsApp group. So we will directly ask that question to the Doc Sahab, and later on we'll come up with the answers. So thank you very much, Doc Sahab. Our session is going to be end here. Thank you. Thanks for the joining in. Thanks everyone for giving a big response on the HLF call. I would really appreciate that in coming days we'll again having such sessions. So we hope and we anticipate that everyone would join in and would appreciate the efforts of the HLF. Thank you very much.